I watched the George Floyd documentary that Candace Owens put up.
Kanye is planning to acquire popular search media site, a social media company, Parler.
Kanye West is about to get screwed by Candace Owens and her husband. Her husband, who owns the right-wing social media platform Parler and is in the process of selling it to Kanye West. So I'm going to explain just how he is getting screwed, and it's very clear, as you will see, but Kanye, of course, has no idea. But this news came just hours after another anti-Semitic and hate-filled rant, this time on the podcast Drink Champs. So quickly here, I'm going to show a clip, unfortunately, and but first, here's some of the garbage he said. Kanye West doubles down on anti-Semitic tropes, rejects invitation to Holocaust Museum. So as Rolling Stone breaks down here, after a brief introduction, West immediately went into a diatribe about the Jewish people, arguing that he's not an anti-Semite because he's also a Jew, quote, as the blood of Christ. However, he then went on a rant about how the Jewish people control all facets of media and entertainment, even blaming Jewish Zionists for recent news stories about how his ex-wife Kim Kardashian and her ex-boyfriend Pete Davidson, who Kanye called a heroin addict, have sex in front of a fireplace. Okay, it makes even less sense if you watch the video. But all of this, of course, anti-Semitic insanity, complete nuts, just hate-filled garbage. But even more here. He went on to discuss George Floyd. So I'm going to play this clip and debunk it, but I'm showing this because he mentions Candace Owens, who is a big influence on him. And Candace Owens, as I mentioned, her husband owns Parler, and we'll get to that story. But first, here is this insane clip.
I watched the George Floyd documentary that Candace Owens put up. One of the things that his two roommates said was, they want a tall guy like me. They want a tall guy like me. And the day when he died, he said a prayer for, 8 minutes. Mm-hmm. He said a prayer for 8 minutes. They hit him with the fentanyl. If you look, the guy's knee wasn't even on his neck like that. But this is, it's like a social contract. Candace Owens has a word for it, I'm forgetting. But it's basically like, they told Candace Owens she couldn't hang out with me.
All right. So I'm going to debunk this George Floyd thing in a second, and then I'll get to Parler. First here, notice how often he brings up Candace Owens. And who's telling her not to talk with him? So he was talking about banks before then. Are big banks telling Candace Owens that she can't talk with Kanye West? Who's telling her this? And how can you possibly believe her? It is... Look, there's a lot going on here. Kanye is full of hate, clearly. He's also out of his mind, and he is being manipulated by Candace Owens. I think all of that can be obvious at the same time. And that becomes even more obvious when we get to Parler. But again, like, who's telling Candace Owens not to talk to? It's all so stupid. But now let me quickly, just on the George Floyd part, since I have to debunk it now, since he brought this up, let me quickly debunk this. These are a couple of medical examiners during the George Floyd trial, or the trial of Derek Chauvin in the death of George Floyd. And here is what they said.
Hennepin County Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Andrew Baker is the only person to testify that he did an autopsy on George Floyd's body. He determined the cause and manner of death.
The law enforcement subdual restraint and the neck compression was just more than Mr. Floyd could take.
But prosecutor Jerry Blackwell asked if drugs or Floyd's heart disease caused Floyd's death.
Mr. Floyd's use of fentanyl did not cause the subdual or neck restraint. His heart disease did not cause the subdual or the neck restraint.
Veteran forensic pathologist Lindsay Thomas is unequivocal in her assessment of how George Floyd died.
There's no evidence to suggest he would have died that night, except for the interactions with law enforcement.
So those are the facts. And another medical expert here, Dr. Tobin, said a healthy person would have died too. So he was already showing signs of brain injury about 4 minutes before Chauvin took his knee off his neck, and that a healthy person who was put through this would have died too. Okay, let's just be clear about Kanye West pushing more right-wing propaganda. Now, the family is potentially suing Kanye West over this. So Lee Merritt, who represents the family, says while one cannot defame the dead, the family of George Floyd is considering suit for Kanye's false statements about the manner of his death, claiming Floyd died from fentanyl, not the brutality established criminally and civilly, undermines and diminishes the Floyd family's fight. Good. I hope they go through with this. Now, let's get to the Candace Owens Kanye West relationship here. So this, came out last week. There's this stupid shirt. Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, to acquire Parler platform. This is a right-wing social media platform that has very little traction because they have content moderation policies. They have to actually moderate their content just like Twitter. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to be downloaded on major app stores. So this is George Farmer, Candace Owens' husband, the CEO of Parliament Technologies that owns Parler and is selling it to Kanye West. Here are his comments on this, and then I'll get to just how stupid this is for Kanye West.
Parler needs Ye in many ways because Parler needs its brand to expand, and I think Ye is very interested in expanding his social media presence. What motivated this for him was, of course, his banning from other social media platforms, and this is a trend that we've seen with so many different people. Instagram, Twitter closing down his accounts, expressing discontent with wrongthink on his part, or at least tweets they weren't happy about.
This is amazing. So I'm going to explain why this is amazing. I have another clip coming up in a second here, but George Farmer here. Okay, so his company is selling Parler. He still owns his company, which has these cloud services, the actual value to what this company has. So he is selling Parler, or in the process of selling Parler, to Kanye West. Parler, to exist on various app stores, on the Google Play Store, on the Apple App Store, for it to actually exist and be worth anything, even though it isn't worth anything currently, but to be worth anything at all, it has to be available to people to download, right? That's how it works. Well, for that to happen, for Parler to remain on these major platforms, these major stores, they have to follow content moderation policies. Meaning, if Kanye West put his same hateful, hate speech, anti-Semitic rhetoric on Parler, Parler would have to moderate him and remove those posts or risk getting taken off Google Play and Apple App Store. So Kanye West is buying Parler because he was angry that he was, pushed off of Twitter and Instagram. He is buying Parler to be able to say whatever he wants, except that he can't say whatever he wants. Otherwise, his company that he is buying would be worth nothing as it's taken off all the app stores. So Candace Owens and George Farmer, her husband here, are completely screwing Kanye West. But this is what sociopaths do. They, of course, are using him for his money. Why else would they have this relationship if not to bolster themselves and somehow enrich themselves off of it? So they are using him, selling the most worthless aspect of his company, Parler, to Kanye, while he still gets to keep his company and use Kanye for the cloud services aspect of it. Oh my God. So just quickly on a little more context around that. So Parler initially was, this big thing during the Capitol riot on January 6th. It was taken down in the wake of that because of its involvement in allowing people to, organize for that. So Parler ultimately had to change its content moderation policies and is now available in both stores. So they changed their policy, and that's why it is still available. Those policies are: Parler must filter out objectionable user-generated content, including hate speech and calls for violence. Just, bolstering or being clear here about what I'm talking about. So the same shit Kanye put on Twitter and Instagram and was banned over, he would also get banned on Parler. Or Parler would have to get banned off of the App Store if they want to keep Kanye on there. Kanye is getting completely screwed. And I'm on no one's side here. Everyone here is a piece of trash. But it's amazing how these people use each other. But let me get to another quick clip here, because this goes into the actual value to his company and what this possibly means for the right going into the future.
And this will help us provide what I'm going to call the plumbing of the internet. We've seen a growth, obviously, most noticeably with Parler, in cancellations of businesses, which host companies that think wrongthink in many ways. Parler was obviously the first victim of this. Parliament Technologies wants to provide the infrastructure, operations, and technology services to the growing and burgeoning Patriot economy.
So this is the actual value to Parliament Technologies, the company that owns Parler and is selling it to Kanye. The actual value here is these cloud services, is the ability to bring in other major right-wing media organizations and have them hosted by this company if they are kicked off of other major hosting services. So, and you know, in that case, you don't need an app store or the Apple App Store or whatever to be able to exist. Unless it's a social media site like Parler, then you do need that. But if you're just a typical website, then you don't need that aspect of it. And you're able to go to a place like Parliament Technologies to be able to host your trash. And I want to give credit here to TYT's Candace Cole, the reporter here, for being the one that turned me on to this fact, why Ye's Parler deal must be bigger than you, or maybe bigger than you think. Going on to write here, the new business would enable companies to support and conduct sales, communications, and operations benefiting and boosting right-wing causes, including hate speech, without repercussions from their computer services provider. So this is the actual value to that company. Kanye West getting completely screwed. If he actually goes through with it, this deal isn't finished yet. He may change his mind. But as it stands, if he actually gives these people money, millions of dollars for a platform worth nothing, and that he can't use to spread his hate without getting taken down or have his company get run to the ground. It is just, this entire story is incredible. And it really shows you that Kanye is a mix of a lot of hate, anti-Semitism, and also just complete insanity and unawareness with how he's being used by Candace Owens and her husband.